Hey YouTube, I'll turn that metronome off. Reminder, if you want a lesson with me, check the link in the description. It might not look like it, but I do have 2 degrees and a bunch of experience professionally, up until March, of course, when nobody had any experience professionally, and I'd love to give you a lesson. So give me a shout out, or don't. And let's talk about metronomes. I got 3 tips for you today. The first tip, not really tip, just kind of a general knowledge thing. Use a metronome every single day in your practice. That's it. Just use a metronome. It doesn't have to be one of these. This is a Korg TM40. I have like 9 of these from Drum Corps. I literally just have like a drawer full of these things. So I have a bunch of them. I'm very privileged. But there's smartphone apps that are free, and there's better ones that are paid, of course, that do the same thing, probably even better than this. And there's really fancy things like downbeat that are like 150 bucks that do everything. Get some form of metronome. You can even just go to YouTube and find drum beats that are at a certain BPM, the BPM that you want to play at, and you can play along with that. That counts as a metronome as long as the drummer is actually playing pretty well. So just use a metronome. I went to a master class with Paul Radke, who's the 2nd trombonist of Los Angeles Philharmonic. I think he's maybe 27, 28 now. Really young guy. Amazing player. Just kind of like speechless the way he plays. He's just so good. He played a couple solo pieces at this master class, and nothing was just like really flashy, but his time was impeccable. I mean, like, he's using rubato and push and pull and all this great stuff and just putting things exactly where you want them to be. There's never a moment where you're like waiting a little too long, or as most younger players will do, playing things a little too early where you just kind of jumps your expectations. He was putting them exactly where they should have been. And during the masterclass, I raised my hand. I was like, Paul, how did you get impeccable time like this? Because I don't know, not many people have that skill. And he was just like, oh, I just use a metronome every day since he was in like 9th grade. Ta-da! That was the whole thing. I thought he had some kind of trick. I don't know, or maybe he's alien and he has a metronome implanted in his brain. I don't know. I was expecting some kind of crazier answer, but he's just like, nope, I just use metronome all the time. Like every single time he plays almost. And that, I was just kind of like, oh, you know what? I should use a metronome every single time I play too. And guess what? It works. I say that as somebody who has gone a little too many times without using metronome for like a couple weeks. I'll just be like, you know what? My time's pretty good. Use a metronome. So tip number 2, a little more specific and not so just like yelling at you guys. I got a cool thing that I learned from my wife, who has a master's in bassoon performance, of course. And that's instead of using the click as the downbeat, 1, 2, 3, 4, you use the space in between, the subdivision, as the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is great. It tests your ability to subdivide. So instead of just relying on this to give you quarter notes and you're not really thinking about where they lay, you have to actively know exactly where that 8th note is. 1 and 2 and 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a lot of younger students will tend to just kind of rush everything. You want to be a little bit early. You just want to get there, right? And you can't do that with this. Obviously with metronome in general. But if you do the subdivision playing, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can't be early because you have to put that 8th note exactly in the right place. And this works up until about 110, and then it's just a little too fast to really be useful. I'm sure some people can do it all the way up to 300 or something. I only use it up until maybe like 100. This is at 76, perfect tempo for it. And if you go really slow, it gets a lot harder because you have so much space until you get to an 8th note. Really like this. So if you want an example of it, I'll just play because it's kind of hard to explain, but it's really easy in practice. So just some quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, So really, it's that simple. You're just playing in between the clicks, and that is now your downbeat. And I do this for not every single time I play a tempo like this, but probably like 70 or 80% of the time. I've been doing it today. I've been playing Contra and this on Arbans, which is a horrible combination, by the way. It feels awful, but it's really good practice. And I've been doing it all at 76 with the 8th note as my downbeat. The last tip I have for you guys, might seem kind of counterintuitive, is to not use your metronome. Play an exercise while recording yourself, and then go back and play your recording with the metronome at the tempo that you were trying to play at. And this will open your eyes. This will tell you, ooh, maybe my time isn't as good as I thought it was. So a good way to do this, if you're working on orchestral excerpts, for instance, is to play an excerpt, you know, a gajillion times with a metronome, and then turn the metronome off, put the recorder on, and play through it with your best possible time, you know, the best way you can play it, and then turn it off, start the video, and when you start playing, you know, you start the metronome. And it doesn't even have to be this way. There's another way I'll talk about in a second, and you can check your time with the metronome and be like, oh, every time I take a breath, I add a 16th note, or I'm really shortchanging this 1 bar rest, or whatever it is. A lot of things you'll find out this way. Another thing to do is a lot of metronomes will have a beat function where you can give it your own tempo. I'm just a little bit fast. I was trying to do the same 76, and you can kind of like listen to the thing you're playing and tap out the downbeats and watch how your tempo is fluctuating in the little readout right here. Usually the phone apps have this as well. And so you can find out like, whoa, I'm going way fast here, and then I'm dipping another 10 clicks here, and then it kind of settles. It's a really good way. This is something we actually did teaching drum corps a lot, is we do a lot of things with the metronome, with the whole drum corps. We'd turn the metronome off to do the same chunk, and we'd have somebody up in the box going, and they'd be watching the tempo readout, and they'd be like, this whole section slows down 15 clicks after this section, and then the drums come in and it speeds way back up. And it's just a really good way to check how your time is without the metronome, because the ideal eventually is to not be using this all the time, right? You do have to be good at playing with a click. In the future, we're going to be doing lots of things where you have headphones on and you're playing with recordings and stuff, right? It's the future of music, but don't always get the metronome. So, in summary, use a metronome, use the offbeat as the downbeat, and record yourself without metronome and check it with the metronome. That's all I got. I'll see you guys next time.